thank you for your time here today. It really does speak volumes. I want to say thank you for being with us here today. And you didn't go to 1429 Senate Street. So thank you. We appreciate having you today. At this time, I would like to welcome and ask Rita Allison, please, to lead us in the pledge.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very, very much. Is there any objection to approving the minutes as presented from our earlier meeting in June? Now, y'all look like two football fields away from each other, but that's okay. Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the agenda as presented? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. I do want to welcome those of you in attendance. I said that before, but I say it again formally. And to all of those who may have attended the meeting online today, thank you for your interest in the work of your State Board of Education. If there are any news media present who did not sign in earlier, please announce your name and company. And I know WIS is here, and AP is here, and Charleston Post and Courier is here. So anybody I miss? WLTX. Going to Carolina, I know where you're from. I know that. I never knew that back then. I only knew 4, 7, and 13 for those of us from the upstate. So, yes, I do. I understand it. At this time, I'd also like to recognize people that we will indeed have for public comment. For public comment today, later, we will have Patrick Kelly from the PSTA and J.W. Ragley from Phone Free Schools, both of those. And I bragged earlier on J.W. because he is the only person honest enough to bring a towel when in the humidity of what we have in South Carolina. Most of us really should have. For visitors to the sign-in, just with us today, we have Catherine Vogel from Pickens County School District as a parent. If she is here, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Debbie Elmore with South Carolina School Boards. Now, y'all can stand if you want to. It's all right. And we have Adam Russell from D.W. Daniel High School. Thank you. Moving into the State Board report from the state chair. I wasn't able to make yesterday, but it was a great opportunity. Look at this facility. Look at the investment that citizens have made to the benefit of public education. Look at the commitment to the cohesiveness of structures that we have had put out all over the place in Columbia. Now we're able to unite and pull them together. For most of us, school has resumed. We in Lawrence 56, Clinton, started on August the 1st, and others are starting earlier as well. And welcome to our first state board meeting in our new facility. I'm very sorry I could not make the ribbon cutting yesterday, but I had a greater obligation to be at a dear colleague and friend's funeral and serve as pallbearer. And that today is really what's leading my homily. Well, this month's homily is called Address Change Notification. as none of you know, and my wife wishes that I didn't know, I love Southern gospel music. The title of today's homily comes from a song by a group known Southbound. Somebody get YouTube and just say you're going to try to listen to it. It's good. A trio of exceptionally talented singers and musicians. Why address change notification? Well, from a geographical standpoint, it is obvious. However, the Federal Department of Education, as well as our best friend Wikipedia, still list our address as 1429 Senate Street as late as yesterday. So that is a much-needed address change notification. Sometimes it takes time to recognize change. Sometimes change affects time. I always like to talk about the months of the year, and I've done that pretty much since the beginning of my taking over. And July gets the shaft because we don't meet. And August being our first meeting, I'd like to, talk a little bit about how we got to where we are. Did you know today, August 13th, is National Left-Hand People Day? Anybody left-handed? I am not. Anybody left-handed? All right, it is. Let's just say the Romans were as bad at math as I am. The Roman calendar was originally 10 months long. They based their calendar off a funkified lunar calendar. Funkified is a word, I believe it is.
A technical term.
Technical term. The months were Martius, Aprilis, Maius, Junius, Quintilis, Sextilis, September, October, November, December. Everybody pick up on that last part? Around 700 BCE, the Roman ruler Numa Pompilius added January and February to the calendar, but get this, February was the last month of the year. Well, until around 1450 BCE, when it got nicely tucked in behind January. But give them props. They did get January right. In 44 BCE, for those of you out there, that should ring a bell, the Senate proposed the name of Quintilis be replaced with Julius, later July. And then again, not to be outdone, in 8 BCE, Sextilis was renamed Augustus, well, for you know where we are now. Why did I go into such a rabbit hole? Because sometimes things need to change. The Roman calendar couldn't have worked with just 10 months, although the Romans tried to keep it with fidelity when in fact they had taken it from the Greeks. Does anyone out there, and this is a quiz, does anyone out there know who the very first South Carolina State Public School superintendent was? I didn't either. I had to look it up. It was Justice K. Gilson, a transplant from Massachusetts. The Department of Education, as is well known, was founded in 1868 when the General Assembly ratified an act to provide for the temporary organization of the educational department of the state. The 1868 Constitution provided for an elected state superintendent of education, a county commissioner, and eventual systems that we know today as public school districts. 1 year later, 1869-1870 school year, they adopted the state adoption of textbooks and the examination and certification of teachers. You see, our old building, located at 1429 Senate Street and affectionately known as the Rutledge Building, became the SDE's home in 1966. Well, in 1966, I was a third grader, and I was blissfully happy in Spartanburg County. I was blissfully unaware and happy. But times change. Things change. Education becomes far more sophisticated and complex and Ponderosa-like. For you old folks, you'll get the reference to Ponderosa being something from Bonanza. All these young people like, I don't get it. Good TV show, watch it. But now I want to drive home the point. But may we always remember that as times and buildings change, the inevitability of an address change notification looms large for all of us. As I mentioned earlier, I helped lay a great friend and colleague, our district safety officer, to rest yesterday. May our calling to make the most of the time we've been granted, because time once used cannot be replaced.
Well, thank you so much for that, Mr. Chairman, and I'll go ahead and proceed with the superintendent's report with your blessing. I just want to emphasize again what an incredibly joyful day yesterday was, truly a historic day here at the department, to have 4 of the 5 living state superintendents of education here and present, and certainly Dr. Nielsen present with us in spirit, even though she wasn't able to be with us physically. But it was a beautiful day, and I just want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the General Assembly, to the people of this state who, as our chairman has so eloquently said, have invested hard-earned and hard-worked-for resources to really create a premier facility that represents our state's commitment to the education of every child. And so we're so grateful as a department to be here. As you said, to have pulled all of our offices from the 4 corners of Columbia into one space where we can all work together and collaborate. It's really exciting. And I want to say a special thank you, too, since he's sitting in here, to Travis, who very capably handles our IT every state board meeting. He was actually here this weekend making sure that all of our IT was working for this state board meeting. And that is so emblematic, I feel like, of the spirit and the energy that so many of our Department of Education staff bring to their work each and every day, willing to go the extra mile to make sure that the job gets done for our students and our educators. And so, Travis, I just wanted to say thank you for that. It was great to see your son Jackson here with you, too. He's a little mini me. But since we did not have a July board meeting, I thought it might be good to start my report with some summertime news. What did we do this summer? And I wanted to especially highlight some incredible work that was happening in our Office of Health and Nutrition with the Summer Break Cafe and then the Seamless Summer Options. So just by the numbers, we had 44 sponsors of different Summer Break Cafe sites, and we had approximately 800 sites that were operational around the state. At current count, there were over 822,000 meals that were served to students at these sites, and that's on the low end. I'm guessing we'll probably be well over 1 million by the time all of the numbers actually come in. We're still gathering and collecting all of those. For the Seamless Summer Option, which is a partnership with districts, we had 65 sponsors that resulted in 700 sites and about 750,000 meals that were served. And I had the great privilege of visiting one of those local sites here in Columbia this summer. Is the Tajaski Learning Center. It is actually at a local church here in Columbia, and it is such a beautiful representation of members of the community stepping up and taking responsibility and ownership for the students in their neighborhood. So at the Tajaski Learning Center, they are not only participating in the summer feeding program, but they also are providing high-quality mentoring and tutoring for students. They are working on their ELA and their math, and they're also teaching them Spanish, which was amazing. I got to sit in on a dance class, too, which was very fun. And, of course, when the young men saw that we had cameras there with us, they wanted to make sure that we recorded them for their highlight reels, their football highlight reels, right, for their scouting. They're already thinking about it in elementary school. So, but it was just a wonderful sight. And it was incredible to see the generational connection there, because we actually met several young ladies who had actually been students at the Learning Center during their growing up, and now they're in college and they're coming back to serve during their summers to be part of this. So we're actually going to have a triple feature today. Since we didn't have a July meeting, we've got 3 videos, but they're all short. So let's go ahead and cue the first video, the Tajaski Learning Center.
We, as a community, need a place for our children to continue to grow and to meet their greatest potential. We are advocates for the children.
Yes.
And a lot of the times our parents are not as familiar with the education system and what goes on in the school. And these people work some 2 or 3 jobs just to make sure that their basic needs are met. For a child to be able to come to a safe haven and to come to a program that they are not only learning or not being fed just with food, they're being fed with love and care. One of the reasons that we have been so successful is that we make sure that the children are cared for.
I truly feel we plant seeds, and we may not be around to see that seed blossom. We may not be around to see that child do what we have poured into them, but we know it would come out.
We have kids now that don't always have that role model or person that they can go to when life gets hard, or even when they have something great that they just want to talk about, just a friend. I like to be that person. And then also Miss Kennis, she won't let me go. And I love that. Me and Miss May, we work with the kids every summer. This is probably my 4th summer actually working. So I just love the faces when they get happy when we get to do dance. They love to do dance. Miss Tania, can we do dance? Can we do dance? And I remember that was me asking to do dance in the afternoon. So it's just like watching them grow up like I did. So it's amazing.
I am so pleased that we are recognized by the community that people want their children to be here. And we love to have visitors, anything that can help. We are always here to provide that service.
And Ms. Debria Maletta is a lifelong educator who in her retirement is still an educator. So very thankful for them and all they're doing at Chejasky. So my second item for my report is the first day of school. Like you said, most of our districts have gone back to school, and I was able to celebrate the first day of school in Florence 1. And I wanted to share just a few of the highlights that I took away from the day there. I was able to be in Del May Elementary School with a 50-year educator, Principal Jolly, who is leading that school to excellence, has led that school to excellence and continues to lead that school to excellence. It's a Title I school. They are a Spanish immersion school, and so I got to visit 2 second-grade classrooms, one that was learning the lesson in Spanish and one that was learning the lesson in English, and then at lunchtime they flipped. And so it was just wonderful to see the energy in the building, to see their strong focus on literacy and on outcomes for students. The second area that I got to visit was the new Compass Academy, or it's actually not a new academy, but what they are doing this year is allowing elementary students to participate in this academy. And this is really an option of last resort for students who would otherwise be placed on homebound education for discipline issues and other things that they might be dealing with. And so the level of partnership there to provide real-time interventions for students to help students get back on track with the goal of getting them back into a mainstream classroom was really beautiful to see. And again, so many partnerships in the local community that make that possible. The next stop that I made was to see what was going to be a vision of a workforce partnership with McLeod Healthcare System. To provide incredible opportunities for high school students in Florence 1 to do dual enrollment, to take CTE credits, but obviously specifically focused on creating a healthcare workforce there for the PD and showing students the many, many, many opportunities that there are to be part of that healthcare system. It's not all medical. There are people who have to work in operations and supply chains. There are folks who are working as dietitians. It's a city unto itself. And so they're doing everything they can to partner with the local school district to show students there that they have a future in Florence 1. And then the last stop that I made was if you're driving towards Myrtle Beach, you go past the farm at Florence 1, and they have a beautiful facility there. They're actually, in addition to allowing any student in the district to come through and be part of this experiential learning that they have there, they're offering equine therapy for other students in the district in partnership with the horse farm that's right next door. And so again, I was just so struck during that day at the strong collaborative partnerships that the district is building with so many different facets of the community. I think one of the things that we truly struggle with in public education is that we've asked our teachers and our educators to be everything to everyone, and they simply can't be. It takes all of us at the table in order to support our students in the way they need to be supported. And so it was very exciting to see those partnerships. So with that lead in, we'll go ahead and do a quick look at Del May Elementary School. I'm sorry you have to watch me on this one. Good morning, this is State Superintendent of Education Ellen Weaver, and I am here at Del May Elementary School in Florence District 1 to celebrate the awesome first day of school here in South Carolina. We are so excited about the potential and opportunity that this school year holds for our students, and I can't imagine a better place to kick off the school year than at a school like Del May that has an incredible 50-year veteran educator as principal, Principal Jolly. They are one of Palmetto's finest schools, and they are achieving high expectations for students who need it the most. I'm so excited to be here today, and I wish all of our educators, students, and parents an incredible school year.
It's always a pleasure having people in the building, but to have the state superintendent of education visit us here at Del May and actually see what we're about, and hopefully take back some of what she saw here, and not just talk about Del May, but talk about schools in general. I hope that we've been a positive example of what she sees across the state. Having a conversation with her about some of the things that we do here and the achievements here, listening to her talk about how our jobs are important and how she values what we do on a day-to-day basis is just an excellent way to start the school year. As an educator, back to school is an opportunity to impact another group of kids another year. And that's how I start the year off, thinking, okay, what are we going to do for our children this year? I wouldn't want to be any place but here.
So I also got to taste some really delicious jitter juice to get rid of those first day jitters that the teacher had in her classroom, and I have to say it really calmed my nerves. So so that was excellent. And then my final plank on my report is something that we'll talk about later in the agenda, but just wanted to report back to you all on the work that the department team has been doing here on the cell phone policy that is up for consideration now. We have spent the better part of the last month and a half since the General Assembly passed the state budget, really engaged in extensive feedback gathering. That was also part of my visit to Florence 1. At the farm, we actually had a round table with a number of principals, assistant principals. We had some teachers there, members of the local school board, and I believe the press was actually in attendance at that as well. So we had a great open forum and conversation, a lot of really good discussion was surfaced there, and so we have engaged our superintendents. We had a wonderful roundtable that we hosted here at the building. Appreciate our school board association bringing some of their members over, and certainly the voices of teachers have been heard loud and clear in the survey that we sent out at the end of the school year. And so very, very thankful for everyone who has given their time to participate in this iterative process. And I'll say, you know, from my perspective, it's a real challenge to walk the line and to thread the needle to get this policy right. But what we have endeavored to put before the board is something that complies with both the spirit and the letter of what the General Assembly has asked us to do, has required us to do in state law, but giving districts the balance of flexibility that they need to actually implement, understanding that different contexts, different age groups, different schools require different approaches. And so one of the things that the General Assembly did do this year that I'm very thankful for, and this actually surfaced in the roundtable that we had at Florence, was that there is safety and technology money that is in the state budget. And we have actually put out guidance to districts saying that we would consider the use of that money for yonder pouches, for cell phone lockers, for things that might be helpful for them in implementing the policy that is eventually passed by the state board, because we certainly want to do everything we can to be a collaborative partner, to set a floor, to set a uniform baseline of definitions that our districts can rely on, but then giving them the flexibility that they need to implement this with fidelity in their districts and schools. And so I actually had the privilege, again, to sit down with a student here. Miss South Carolina Teen came and saw me, and her platform actually is called Hang Up and Hang Out, Increasing Quality of Life by Decreasing Screen Time. And so I'll let her speak to you in her own words.
Hang Up and Hang Out is increasing the quality of life for youth by decreasing the screen time. And as a teenager, I can relate to teens because I have a cell phone and I have technology at my fingertips. So I know what it's like to be addicted and to have FOMO at some times because you want to be connected on social media, but you also want to foster relationships, and my platform is advocating for fostering those relationships and getting kids to get off of their cell phones to truly invest in the quality of life and to make sure that you're getting out in the community and having relationships and connecting with people on a deeper level. I went to River Bluff High School, recently graduated from there, and I would definitely say that having your device at the desk was something that was a distraction for me because I knew that a device is something that I can have a safety net for. And so having kids now in high school or even middle school and elementary school to ban cell phones and to not have cell phones at the touch of their fingertips is something that I think is going to be beneficial for their academic performance, and also allowing them to foster relationships in the classroom. Hang Up and Hang Out, yes, is about advocating for being off your cell phones, but that doesn't mean that technology and social media is terrible for you. I think that there just needs to be moderation with how long we're using those devices. You can spend an hour on the device or you can spend 30 minutes on the device, and that's a huge difference that people need to be educated about, and that's one thing that I want to be an impact for.
So I appreciated her being willing to come and to lend her voice. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that I had from our conversation was when she talked about addiction in her own personal experience, that she hadn't recognized her reliance on her cell phone as an addiction until she was forced to put it down. And I think that most of us realize in life that there are very few things that are of truly eternal and lasting value that don't require intention. And as I hear her talk about the need to develop quality relationships, to really be able to engage other people in a meaningful way, and how much harder the screen makes that for students to do during the school day, I was just really impressed by her level of maturity and thoughtfulness that she brought to the conversation, and I'm very thankful to have her as a student voice, which is very important for us to have in this conversation as we move forward. So, Mr. Chair, thank you for your forbearance. With that, I conclude my report.
No, thank you very much, Superintendent Weaver. There is no parliamentarian comment at this time, so we would ask we move into public comment. And as I understand it, we have two people who have signed up to speak, and I will go through the verbiage so that it is fair for all. We appreciate your interest in public education. You will be allotted 5 minutes for your comments. Since we're hearing your comments for the first time, it is our policy to accept your comments as information. If we have questions or need additional information, we will contact you at a later date. Thank you for your understanding of our procedures. So at this time, if Patrick Kelly from PSTA would come forward, please. And Dr. Hanley, if you would take care of us.
Mr. Chair, Superintendent Weaver, members of the board, thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you today. Patrick Kelly, Director of Governmental Affairs for Palmetto State Teachers Association, and an APUS government teacher at Blackwood High, coming off day number 4, should have been day 5, but weather had other plans. Thank you for your continued support and commitment to elevating the work of South Carolina's professional educators in the service of our state students and families. I come before you today to ask for an important way you can further that support for the work of educators, specifically classroom teachers. As you know, Regulation 43-170 went into effect on August 1st. As certified professionals, teachers across the state are working to ensure the materials they use in their classrooms are aligned with the requirements in that regulation. I thank you and the department again for the careful and deliberate process that you employed in crafting the regulation in order to ensure the policy could address and eliminate concerns about sexually explicit content in schools without creating undue and unworkable burdens on educators. In your work, you sought to craft a policy to serve as a guide, a criteria to guide and inform the work of educators, not a policy focused on compliance for the sake of compliance. Unfortunately, implementation of the policy to date in some areas of the state has not been aligned with your intent to minimize burden on educators. To the contrary, R 43-170 is being pointed to as requiring implementation of bureaucratic burdens on teachers that I've never experienced in my 20 years in the classroom. For example, in some districts, teachers have been told that they cannot use any supplemental instructional material beyond the state-approved textbook or a narrow list of district-approved materials without first receiving administrative pre-approval. For an example of what that means, as an AP government teacher, I would need to get administrative approval before I could use an excerpt from the Federalist Papers or a recently released opinion of the U.S. Supreme Court. I know that wasn't your intent because I was here when you debated it. However, R 43-170 doesn't explicitly require that kind of pre-approval because of your intent. What the regulation says is just that new instructional materials must be, quote, determined to comply with and satisfy the requirements of the reg. But in your wisdom as a board, you didn't articulate who can make that determination, nor did you establish a prescriptive policy for approval of materials. As certified professionals, a classroom teacher is fully capable of making the determination of whether or not classroom material complies with the reg. Similarly, other districts are requiring teachers to proactively develop a list of all instructional materials they'll use in a classroom throughout the entire school year. That goes far beyond the listing of textbooks and novels that would be read you typically find in the core syllabus. It's extending to videos that might be used, articles that could be read, PowerPoint slides to be used. I build those as I go. I don't have them all at my fingertip right now. And again, R 43-170 is being offered as justification for the requirement, but your reg clearly states a district is not required to, quote, prospectively review and assess existing instructional materials. It states only that a teacher must be ready to provide such a list upon reasonable request from a parent. Complying with such a request obviously requires the existence of a list, but that list can be built during the course of the school year, something I'm doing right now in my classroom and not trying to do it on the first Friday of the year. In both instances, districts obviously have the authority to impose these requirements. And I don't think they're doing this out of malintent. I think it's lack of clarity in the information. So what I'd ask of you is that you issue guidance to districts to make it clear what the regulation requires of a classroom teacher and what it does not. I think that the new landing page the department has developed for the regulation would be a fantastic place to house such a resource, and it would be welcomed by the state's teachers. So thank you for your time and your commitment to the children and educators of our state.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, sir. At this time, I would invite J.W. Ragley from Phone Free Schools.
All right. Thank you all very much, Dr. O'Shields, board members, Statesman Weaver. Thank you all for allowing us to public comment today. My name is J.W. Ragley. I'm a husband, a father, resident of Columbia, South Carolina, father of 2 sons, one of whom happens to be on the autism spectrum. I'm also an alumnus of the State Department of Education. We have wonderful new digs. It's great to be here as opposed to Fort Rutledge, so to speak. And I really respect your role as Stewart Bay board members in the process that you have to play in. Some of you might know me as a consultant to some companies or education service providers, but today I'm in the role as a volunteer for an organization called the Phone Free Schools Movement. The Phone Free Schools Movement is a nonprofit organization that was founded by 3 mothers who were concerned about the negative impacts of cell phone use by their own children in the schools that they attended, and they wanted to do something about that. Since its founding, the Phone Free Schools movement has become the leading voice on this particular issue and has been featured in articles by the Associated Press, the Wall Street Journal, Ed Week, which is a leading education publication, The Economist, and CNN. This organization also works with school districts to support them as they implement phone-free school policies in their districts and has developed an administrator toolkit as a free resource. Additionally, the Phone Free Schools movement has created an ambassador program so that parents can help their schools and their teachers implement these policies that they're doing in their districts. The Phone School movement did send a letter to Dr. O'Shields and Mr. Tyler regarding the draft model policy, and they are generally supportive of that policy regarding personal electronic communication devices. However, I do want to briefly talk about a couple of questions that came up earlier today. First, it's been stated the budget proviso that the General Assembly passed mandates that the State Board of Education create this model policy, and budget provisos are law. The law was clear that the proviso was intended to ban the use of personal electronic communication devices during the school day. The plain meaning of school day is the entire school day, including lunch, recess, and hallway time between classes. This is not the case when some have interpreted to mean that it means individual classrooms. The General Assembly is very clear it meant the whole school day, and the Phone-Free Schools movement supports policies that are bell-to-bell restrictions, which means the entire school day. Second question was raised about a few school districts that might have an application they use to allow students to have a hall pass to go to the restroom or for other permitted activities. And having worked with the General Assembly for almost 20 years now on a variety of issues, I can say with a lot of confidence that the way the proviso is written and the law is written, that app is no longer allowed or permitted use in school districts. But it's also not the first time that the General Assembly has passed a law prohibiting activity by a subdivision of the state. In 2011, the General Assembly passed a law, Act 65, that prohibited the use of cameras to issue speeding tickets or red light tickets, even though some local governments had already entered into contracts with service providers to issue those tickets. So when the law was enacted, those contracts were null and void, and that's just the risk that service providers take with regard to changes in state laws. However, there is a tried, true, and tested method for hall passes in schools that we've all experienced. Maybe it was a red ruler, maybe it was a green piece of paper, laminated paper that says hall pass, that we can do that. So the apps, while they might be nice, are actually not prohibited, or not, permitted by the proviso anymore, and so we're going to have to find some alternatives. The good news is we've got 50 years of experience of red rulers and green pieces of paper. Third is the concern about student discipline. Now, as a parent of a child with autism who has significant behavioral challenges, I have a lot of concerns about student discipline and how it's applied in schools. It's a very important topic, and it's a very complex topic. However, it's not part of this policy. It's such an important topic that it frankly deserves its own course of study, and perhaps the General Assembly in the future, in partnership with the department, will form a study group to look at student discipline and classroom management across the state. But it really is kind of outside of the scope of this particular model policy, and it's worthy of its own time and its own review. Lastly, and to wrap up, and speaking as a parent, again, of two sons, the roles of a student and teacher are different. They're meant to be different. And so this budget proviso charges the State Board with creating a student policy, not a teacher policy. And while it's important about how adults in schools are using their devices, and lots of school districts have HR policy and employee handbooks where they specify that, this policy is focused solely on students. And so while it might be important to talk about the adults in the schools, it's important to recognize that is a separate policy as opposed to a student policy, which is what this proviso did. If the General Assembly had decided to include adults, it would have included adults in the writing of this law. Thank you for listening to our comments today and for your public service. The Phone Free Schools movement looks forward to this strong policy being implemented, and they're ready to assist any school district in any way possible. They do that around the country with a number of schools, and they have their administrative toolkit. At the end of the day, they believe this policy is in the best interest of students, and that's what we are all about. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. You had 4 seconds left. That's good. All right, under State Board items, the Policy and Legislative Subcommittee met at length and for an extended period of time, and although there were items listed for approval, we postponed the personal electronic communication device policy to be at a later time, and item 2 we had placed on the consent agenda, which was the proposed changes to State Board of Education rules of governance, specifically board dates, times. But actually, in hindsight, from what we discussed this morning, I now must formally object to the consent agenda for reasons that I will explain later. So at that point, no action was taken to be brought on a consent agenda, but will be at a later point. I would like to turn it over to the Educator Professions Committee.
The Education Professions Committee met and heard two action items this morning. One, the Professional Review Committee. Oh, no. Do I have to start all over again? Yeah, you do. Okay. The Professional Review Committee, PRC as it is referred to, a new member was approved to join that committee. That was one action item we discussed. The second action item was the new educator preparation program at Francis Marion University for the Bachelor's of Science in Special Education multi-categorical was approved. These were the only action items we discussed, and they were placed on the consent agenda. We did not hear any information items this morning. That concludes, Dr. O'Shields.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, Dr. Johnson. A motion has been made from the committee. I'll get it yet. A motion has been made from the committee, and it does not require a second. Is there any discussion? All right. The vote, if we could take a vote for that. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you very, very much. From our Standards Learning and Accountability Committee report, I would like to recognize Ms. Lynn to present the Educator Professions report at this time.
The SLA committee met this morning and we approved adding additional members to the 2024 instructional materials review panel.
All right, so we have that. The motion has been made from the committee. It does not require a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Let's move into the Educator Licensure Committee report, and I would like to recognize Ms. Kreminger.
Thank you, Chair Shields. The Education Licensure Committee heard a total of 16 cases today with 14 suspensions and one initial application approved and one initial application denied. And we as a committee would like to thank General Counsel for all of their hard work in bringing these cases before us.
Thank you very much. And in hearing that, the full board met and did affirm that as well as the list of the subcommittee. Moving into the consent agenda. The consent agenda has been distributed, though modified from its original plan. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Board Member Allison made a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Board Member Kreminger seconded the motion. All in favor of the motion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. 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 All opposed by like sign. The motion carries. At this point, we will move into the South Carolina Board of Education report with modifications. Yeah, okay, sorry. The full Board Educator Licensure Committee met, took action on two cases. One was a suspension of, for unprofessional conduct for breach of contract, and one was an order of revocation on the grounds of unprofessional conduct. So the full board ELC did meet and do that. We've had the consent agenda approved, so we now move into item 11. cases. All right, clarification, age, whatever. Approval of the ratification agenda, confirm ratification, and therefore, at this point, and I will defer to parliamentarian at this point, we do need a motion and a second. Nope. Okay, at this point, I'll learn in remedial school. It's Saturday school and other things for those of us of older age. So thank you very much. I'll keep you on your toes. All right, South Carolina Board of Education report. All right, first we will deal with the Newberry County School District waiver request. John Tyler will bring this forward as it relates to a student participating in interscholastic activities.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With this being my first time presenting in the new boardroom and at the desk, I think I wish I had some of that jitter juice that was referenced earlier for the first day of school. Before the board today are actually 3 athletic waivers, one from Newberry, one from Greenville, and one from Pickens. As you all are aware, South Carolina law gives this board authority to grant waivers to student athletes who have been deemed ineligible. Specifically, South Carolina Code, Section 5939-160C1, grants this board exclusive authority to grant a waiver of eligibility requirements when one of the following circumstances has been met. When a student's ineligibility is due to misinformation concerning eligibility requirements being provided by district personnel, or when a student's ineligibility is due to a long-term absence as a result of medical condition, or when there is a reasonable circumstance as determined by the State Board of Education. So let's take this in order. Someone from Newberry will step up to the podium and present. Please present the reasoning behind your request, and then members of the board may have questions for you. After Newberry, Greenville will step up, and then Pickens. So, Newberry.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First and foremost, I want to thank you for granting us an audience today to request a waiver for senior Isaiah Glimp. He is a senior at Newberry High School. Isaiah is in good academic standing. He had some difficulty last school year. He was unsuccessful taking his 3rd science. He is currently enrolled in his 3rd science and is on track to graduate on time. I would like for Principal Sarah Harvey to kind of walk us through some of the adversities he encountered, and she can further explain that.
I want to reiterate, thank you guys for having us and supporting our students. Isaiah and his father are here with us today. Like Mr. Presley said, Isaiah is a 4th-year student at Newberry High School. He's a 3-sport athlete. Last school year, he did struggle in his 2nd semester academically. During basketball season, he suffered a laceration to his kidney, and that put him out for some days of not just school but sports. He became a father in July of 2023. He continued to play 3 sports while he worked 2nd shift jobs. Isaiah has also worked very hard in his high school career to meet his IEP goals and has gotten to the point where he doesn't have to go for servicing. So he's a hard-working student. He did struggle last year in his Biology 2 course. The high school league said that it's a graduation requirement. It is a 3rd science. He doesn't have to pass that exact course. So he's in chemistry right now. In the spring, he could take a 4th science. So he is on track. He will graduate with his class. He has taken full responsibility for his academics last semester. He knows when tutoring is now. His coaches are on top of it, but he did just have a lot of circumstances against him. Athletics are very important to him. He is a big part of our school and part of that process. So thank you again for listening to us. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I was going to ask, does anyone have any questions for either Dr. Presley or the principal?
Can I just make a comment, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
So, Isaiah, I want to congratulate you on taking full responsibility. That is key to really accomplishing much of anything in life. So the fact that you are taking ownership of the issue and getting the help that you need, that's impressive. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. If we can at this point take an act. We have heard the appeal. Do we have a motion for approval or disapproval of the appeal?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the Newberry County School District's waiver request for this student.
All right. I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Chairman, I second that.
All right. We have a second. Thank you from down there. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations. Very best wishes, unless you play Clement.
That's game three.
You got,
Thank you all
got
so
our
much.
blessings, but only qualified blessings.
Thank you, and I promise he won't let you guys down.
Thank you. All right, if Greenville would come up at this time, please, for their waiver request.
State Superintendent Weaver, Mr. Chairman, distinguished board members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Chris Carter, and I proudly serve as the athletic director at Woodmont High School, the 2023 winner of the Palmetto's Finest Award. Our school also has the distinguished honor of having the highest graduation rate among the 16 high schools in Greenville County for the last 3 years, despite having 60% poverty. That is a sign that our students, that our teachers and staff are reaching our students, and our coaches are creating meaningful relationships with our student athletes. My life is better because a coach invested in me, and I believe that I will be held accountable for the opportunity to work with young people, as we can never go wrong when we invest in the lives of children. Our educationally based athletic program is a great vehicle to reach our students as we prepare them for the future. I come to you today on behalf of Woodmont High School transfer student Demario Moore, who is a senior. Demario transferred to Woodmont from Malden High School. I would like to thank Ms. Moore for her guidance, as our first conversation about my concern was yesterday after lunch, so it has been a mad scramble to get my ducks in a row. In our state, you know that we, the students in grades 9 through 12, must achieve two things. One, an overall passing average, and pass at least 4 academic courses, including all required classes for graduation, or pass 5 academic classes total. Eligibility for first semester sports is based on the final grades from the second semester report card from 23-24. During the second semester, Demario did not pass an Algebra 2 class, and his final grade was a 45. He received a floor grade of 50 for both 9 weeks, and he did not take the exam. A guidance counselor at his school, at his previous school, enrolled him in credit recovery, and he persevered, took 2 classes that he completed and received full credit for on his current transcript. Most importantly, Demario advanced to the 12th grade. He currently has 6 credits and an overall passing GPA, meeting both requirements from the South Carolina High School League. However, as of today, he is not eligible. He is not eligible because of a bylaw in the South Carolina High School League that says to be eligible to recover credits, students must have an original grade of 50 in the class. The student falls short of the mandatory passing average of 60 without credit from his credit recovery class. It is important to note that the Greenville County School District does not have a minimum grade requirement for students to be eligible to take credit recovery classes. And the South Carolina Universal Grading Policy requests that the district create credit recovery guidelines. If the credit recovery grade is allowed, the student has checked both boxes. I spoke with Commissioner Jerome Singleton and was told that we would need a waiver from this board. I would like to respectfully request a waiver based on these facts. Based on his transcript, the student is classified as a class of 2025 member. The South Carolina bylaw directly conflicts with the South Carolina board policy regarding credit recovery. The South Carolina High School League bylaw directly conflicts with the South Carolina universal grading policy. If the student had withdrawn from the class after day 20 or had failed on attendance, his minimum grade would have been 50. His overall passing average, he needs his overall passing average and credits to be eligible. In my opinion, the student has demonstrated evidence of learning by earning the passing marks in credit recovery and should be eligible to participate. This decision will not affect Mario just this year, but for the next 60 years. He desperately needs the accountability and love provided by his teammates and coaches. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very, very much.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions from any member of the committee or the board?
I do. So your teachers can give whatever the grade the student earns is the grade they get. There's no minimum on that final report card of 50 as their final.
From what I understand, ma'am, if a student gets a floor grade of 50 for each grading period, the calculation of the zero is included, and that's why that grade on his transcript is not 50 but 45. It's also my understanding that when they revised the bylaws of the high school league, that they didn't take that into consideration.
Because I think there was a time when the first grading scale came out that we were encouraged, I know in our district, not to give a child lower than a 50 on
That's
that.
correct.
So it's probably
That is correct, ma'am.
changed.
Yes, ma'am.
And as I understand it, he did go and take credit recovery on his own or
On his
with
own.
encouragement and passed those classes
Yes, sir. He currently has 6 credits toward eligibility
and is a senior.
and has been promoted to the 12th grade.
I have no questions. Anyone else?
So I probably don't understand credit recovery well enough, but
Yes, ma'am.
was one of the courses that he took algebra?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And he passed it?
That's correct.
Okay.
So when he passes credit recovery, that passing grade is equivalent to a 60.
Okay.
And so that 60 replaces his 45, and that gives him an overall passing average.
So the bottom line is, once the districts change from, you can put any average as whatever they earned as their lowest average, the high school league did not change their bylaws. They kept it the 50.
That's correct.
As it
ma'am.
was first.
That's my understanding.
All right. Anyone willing at this point? We've heard a very reasonable, I think, appeal. Does anyone wish to either approve or deny the appeal from Greenville County and specifically Woodmont High School?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Richardson.
And I feel the same way, as long as they don't play Myrtle Beach or Conway.
Yeah, I've already checked. I checked that on. I checked that on my phone that I didn't see. So yeah, Woodmont gets a pass.
I'll second
else?
that.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now, at this point, we have a request from Pickens High School, if they would please come forward.
First of all, thank you guys for your time. Although we are from Pickens County, this is D.W. Daniel High School. Chad Smith is probably upset about that in Pickens. My name is Ben Touchberry. I'm the athletic director at D.W. Daniel High School. Alongside here, our principal, Adam Russell, and Chloe Miller's parent, Catherine Vogel. We're here to discuss a young lady, Chloe Miller. She is a senior at D.W. Daniel High School. She has a 5.023 weighted GPA. She has a 3.907 unweighted GPA. She's taken 5 AP classes up until this point of her senior year. She ranks 48 out of 273 in our senior class. She's 17%. She is an active participant in volleyball, where she excels. What happened to Chloe is, with her academic and her rigorous schedule, she was taking 3 classes last spring. And obviously, fall eligibility is based on spring grades in academics. She was taking 3 classes. She was a full-time enrolled student. One of those was AP U.S. History, which she had an A in. And then she also took 2 other classes, Leadership and Civic Responsibility. And both of those classes she excelled in, but because of the rigorous grades and the GPA game that you have to play for college and universities, she audited Leadership and Civic Responsibility, only leaving her with 2 units to participate in athletics, in which we know you have to have 4 towards graduation. And so we're asking for a waiver of request. We're talking about an individual who is on student council, who is an active member of FCA, who is everything that you want to embody in a student athlete. And I hope to one day that my daughter, that's 9 years old, can be somewhat like Chloe. And I'm going to ask our principal, Adam Russell, to share a little bit more information about Chloe and also her mother, Catherine, as well.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, and Board, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Chloe in this circumstance. As the principal at Daniel High School, we are fortunate to have just very competitive students, competitive on the field, competitive on the court, and competitive in the classroom. And they are all competing for, I challenge them to compete for whatever their heart's desire is. And that is really what we see here when it comes to the practice of auditing courses. Our students, including my own daughter, who's a 10th grader, audit courses so that they can maximize their GPA. It is a pressure they put on themselves. It's a pressure that the school, the district, we create, but it's also something that coming from the outside, I know universities, the pressure they're placing on our students to be more competitive, to earn those positions. Ms. Vogel's going to be able to speak in a moment about the hopes and dreams that Chloe has, but certainly to be able to compete at the next level in college volleyball. You know, there's a lot of pressure on her to maximize that transcript, but also to participate her senior year. So we are asking for this waiver request for a young lady. But Ms. Vogel?
Thank you, and good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Katie Vogel, and my husband and I are here today to represent Chloe, who is a senior at Daniel High School. Today is a bittersweet day for her because it's the first game of her season. And as of last night, she doesn't know if she's going to play. Excuse me. I'm not sure if I can get through all of my remarks, but similar to what some of the other parents have shared, volleyball is not just a sport, but it's her community, it's her sense of belonging, and this is her senior year. And it is tragic as a parent to hear that might be taken away because she participated in 2 courses in which she received 100, but because they were not on the honors track, she was advised to not take credit for those courses to be more competitive for college. So I just ask that you consider this request because it will drastically devastate her in her senior year in her first game, which is tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, are there any questions of the principal or the athletic director?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Help me to understand why they're just now finding this out.
So eligibility is due today?
I understand.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
understand.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
that happened last spring.
Yes, ma'am. There's a process for submitting the audits. They put down all their courses, and then they are signed off on. Yes, ma'am.
And I understand, and I know the climate at Daniel, and I recognize the jockeying for GPA and the fact that certain classes can indeed lower your GPA. So I know why it was done. So to me, I'm cool, but y'all got to be
Mr.
cool.
Chair, if I could make a
Yes, sir.
comment. An impressive transcript.
Yes.
If I counted right, 21 A's in her high school career
Yes, sir. I believe that Algebra 2 was
of
a challenge.
85.
Yes,
But
sir.
you know, that's
Yes, sir.
nothing to. I mean, I'd take it. So I'm impressed, and I was a superintendent in a school district, and I called over to the high school one day and said, I want to follow a student today. She didn't know I was going to follow her. I followed her all day, her schedule, went to classes with her. She took AP classes, she took honors classes, but she did audit one class. And I asked her, I said, why did you do that? She said, look at my schedule. Why wouldn't I audit this class? So I see as these students are working hard to keep that GPA because scholarships are extremely important, that this, I can see how this could happen. I would just say that in this process, as soon as a student, checking those transcripts earlier is just going to be critical.
Yes,
and I don't think that's her fault. Somebody that makes 21 A's would probably have checked, she would have corrected that, but I don't see that as really her fault.
I appreciate that. I actually finished her letter of recommendation yesterday, and then we found out about this later in the day. So she is
Just a
impressive.
comment, where's the guidance counselor? I mean,
They are part of the process. Yes, ma'am.
they should be very active in this, especially your senior athletes, and should not have to wait and let them go through this traumatic experience, not knowing when they could have met with them and gone over this with them.
We understand exactly what you're saying. And yesterday we met collectively with our head guidance counselor, and we've taken provisions and steps and a process in place moving forward so this doesn't happen again. And when you're dealing with roughly 700 eligibility requests throughout a year for D.W. Daniel High School, sometimes that GPA can blur the vision of what they're going to be doing in the fall. And that's just the reality of it. But we have taken provisions and done a step-by-step process of what an audit class looks. So from now on, one of those steps, if a kid audits, we have to sign off on that as the athletic department. And that decision was made yesterday.
This was no offense to you all, but we're seeing this happen in other places too. And it does appear to me, I'm not looking at 700 children but it does look to me as if when she registered for those classes last year, that somebody should have flagged, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. She should not be dealing with this a week after school started. I mean, I feel that's very unfair to the student for them to do that. But again, you're not the only school that does this, and we understand the process seems to be pretty cumbersome. That's what it appears to be to us.
Mr. Chair, I've got a question as
Yes.
well. Did I understand you correctly to say that she was enrolled in 3 courses?
Yes, she was. She was in the AP U.S. History. She's in a civic responsibility, which is a volunteering class in learning our role, and then in a leadership class because she is the secretary of the student council.
But then I also heard you say that 4 are required. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
I'm going to have to invite my athletic director to explain some eligibility.
4 credits that you earn have to be towards graduation for academic requirements.
For the semester?
They get, when you take a semester class, those get doubled.
Okay.
So in other words, one U.S. history class, because we were on a block schedule last year, now we're on a hybrid schedule, which is a block and an AB schedule, which is going to make things a little bit more challenging as well.
Yeah, okay.
But so we were on a semester block last year. So when you take one unit, you've crammed a year's worth of work into one semester. So the high school league and UGA State Department has said that credit actually doubles.
Right.
So it gave her 2, even though she took one class.
Okay.
She could have simply said, I'm not going to audit leadership and civic responsibility, and that would have given her 6 because she excelled in both of those with, I think, a 100 in leadership, I know.
100,
In
at
both-
least one we can
At least
confirm.
one we know, we can confirm, but we know she had A's in all 3 had she taken a grade for those, but she didn't want to do that because she felt the need to play the GPA game.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because it's.
It can be
you know,
complicated
as-
for sure.
Well,
Yes.
as Dr. Johnson said, you know, we see this from a lot of districts.
sir.
And it's not the student's fault. It's,
We
there-
understand.
the failure is at the school or the district level. And this is a significant issue. And so, just as I told that young man in the back, it was important for him to take ownership. It's very important for your school and for your district to take ownership of this and make sure that your students are cared for well.
And those are things that will be communicated. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
As the mom of a student athlete who will start his sophomore year playing sports in college, and student was first, as in your case, and athlete was second, I wanted to commend you. I know that you have to, and she has to be devastated to receive this news the day before the season starts. I want to commend her on her hard work, and I want to commend you on helping her throughout all of her school career to reach this point, because she didn't reach this point by herself, and she did not reach it overnight. This is not her fault. It is not your fault as parents, and I really would urge you as administrators in the school, please don't make excuses about how many student athletes have to check these boxes. It is the responsibility of the student, the parent, but also the school and the guidance counselors to make sure this does not happen. And we can give you a waiver, and I think I know which direction we'll go, but you shouldn't be standing here. And this student shouldn't be devastated and worried about whether she can play. And this mom shouldn't be brought to tears because of the hard work that her daughter has done that may just be wiped out in a moment's notice because she was trying to do the right thing. And I 100% guarantee at the advice of a counselor, somebody told her to audit. And that person has to take responsibility, and the school has to take responsibility for that. She's being punished for doing all the right things. And if she felt fear or devastation for a moment, something failed along the way, and it shouldn't happen again.
All right, are there any more questions, comments? All right, do we have a motion as it relates to the waiver request for DW Daniel High School?
I move, Mr. Chair, that we approve this waiver for this student
All right,
at your school.
Board Member Kriminger makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, well, that's something I don't know. Pick one. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And to the parents. He doesn't look like him, but he's Santa Claus, because during the side conversation, I asked, could we expedite this today? And you said?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So it can be done, so she can play today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We do have additional items. If you will notice.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I move that the full board consider the first reading of the personal electronic communication device policy.
All right, thank you. There is a motion to consider first reading of the personal electronic communication device policy. For clarification, please, the motion is simply to hear the item today, the motion is not for passage of the item. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Madam Allison seconds. Would you, all right. Would you like to present your motion?
I would. First off, this morning, the Policy and Legislative Committee deliberated on the personal electronic device policy, and they chose to postpone further action until our next meeting. However, today, the State Board of Education could accomplish a first reading and come back for a second reading at our next meeting. First, this is consistent with the discussion that occurred this morning. Concerns were raised about completely passing the policy today, and the primary reason that we did not immediately pass it was to allow time for additional stakeholder input. Instead of completely passing the policy today, I propose that the first reading, I propose that we have a first reading. This would allow all of the board members to get our questions out, to hear from the State Department of Education staff, and then for the staff to take that into consideration between today and a second reading. Essentially, this would better accomplish what we set out to do this morning in committee. And this item has already been placed on the agenda today, so there is appropriate notice. South Carolina Budget Proviso 1.102 went into effect on July 1st. This requires policy to be in place. Having first reading today would be a good step to comply with this proviso.
Are there any questions or further deliberations? Therefore, under State Board Governance BCBD, taking up this item in full board requires a 2/3 vote of those present. Again, we are simply voting to hear first reading of the policy. We're not at this time voting on the policy itself. Therefore, all in favor of this, please signify by raising your hand. All right, anyone, and I couldn't see everyone, anyone? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, the second item, in looking at this, I would like for Dr. Ferguson to come forward and present this, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I don't think my PowerPoint is loaded, but we're going to talk through it for the second time. I feel like the teacher in third period, and I've got to make sure I say all the things that I said this morning again. But I want to start off with, it has been a lot of work, but it's been pleasurable work to work on the cell phone policy this past month and a half. We've had a lot of really interesting conversations with stakeholders from teachers, from superintendents, from school board members, and from students. I know y'all saw the video of the young lady who is Miss Teen South Carolina. My 12-year-old thought I was really famous because I met Miss Teen South Carolina. That was better than meeting the superintendents yesterday, I think, in her opinion. But wanted to start with, in your pre-reading, you were able to see some of the research from Dr. Jonathan Haidt's new book, The Anxious Generation, and the opportunity that we have now to give back to children a distraction-free childhood, an opportunity to, as Ms. Marchant said, to hang up and hang out, where we are giving children back the opportunity to engage with their peers in a phone-free environment. And so there's a lot of research in that book that is shared, and if you have not read that, I encourage you to do so, but also listen to the podcast. If you don't want to read the whole book like I do, I have a lot of time to read Audible books, but it really talks about how we have really experimented on children in a lot of ways since 2012 with giving them a device in their hand, and also the proliferation of social media and the harms and the bullying that occurs as a result of that. Also, recognizing that we are not alone in this endeavor. So there are several other states who are in similar places as us. They run the gamut from Florida, Ohio, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. I just read those wrong. Florida, Ohio, Indiana, Alabama, and Virginia. Not the same list I started off with. I need to read my notes better. But also some very large school districts. So LA Unified is considering a policy to prohibit the use of cell phones. So is New York Public Schools. There are several school districts in South Carolina who are on a similar path to consider policy that would also prohibit the use of cell phones in schools. And so going back to the stakeholder input, I joked this morning that when we first sent the survey out after the passage of the proviso in July, our survey platform thought that we had been hacked and spooked because the responses were coming in so quickly. So there were over 9,000 teachers who very quickly responded and said this was one of the #1 issues that they had in their experience, and it needed to be urgently addressed. They shared that there were hours of instructional time each day wasted as a result of responding to cell phone distractions. They also emphasized that they wanted to be in a position where they were not the cell phone police, where they were supported by administration and school boards that were willing to enforce the policy as well. We listened to superintendents, and one of the big aha moments that came out of those meetings were the difference between the instructional day and the school day. So many of the policies that are currently in place across South Carolina school districts is a prohibition of the use of cell phones during the school day. The anxious generation, some of the research from PISA shows that it's not enough just to have to limit access to cell phones during instruction. A lot of the problems with cell phones also occur in the hallways, at lunch. One superintendent shared that since really taking a hard stance on prohibiting cell phones during the school day, there are a lot fewer requests to go to the restroom because kids are not needing that dopamine injection, and they're running to the restroom to check their social media and how many likes they got. They also reported less bullying during the school day. We also talked about what a personal device is. Superintendent, school board members were really adamant about it being a very open definition, so that it included smartwatches, that it included the eyeglasses, which is really interesting to me. I didn't know those things were out there as much as they are, but school board members really shared that there are many more and more kids, I guess I should say, coming to school with the Bluetooth connected glasses, and also the smartwatches being an important part of that. Many of the school board members and the superintendents also got into exceptions. What should be exempt from this policy? The normal ones came up about medical, kids needing the ability to check their glucose monitors, children needing perhaps the use of a personal device to comply with a very specific IEP accommodation. And then the one that surprised me, I learned from a superintendent and a few board members about the emergency responders who are across the state and being able to provide that recognition and ability as long as the superintendent or the principal signed off. I joked at that time that it was, we've got to have that superintendent or designee approval, because Dr. Hanley, we would certainly let him be a first responder, but I might be a Yahoo and just join emergency responder so I could have my cell phone. That might not be the best use of time. So really putting the stopgap to the exceptions. And then finally, the exception for educational purpose and making sure that that was tied to an objective educational standard that was approved by the superintendent or his or her designee, so that it would not lead to rampant lack of implementation of the policy across the board, but that there was a floor that had to be met across the state, but the ability for individual districts to be able to work through the local nuance that is in every district, so that they could build upon that floor to make the policy stronger and meet their individual needs. And that is in line with what the proviso passed, proviso 1.103, and that is how we came up with the model policy that was presented to you in your reading and presented this morning in the Policy and Legislative Committee.
Thank you. Are there any questions at this point from the whole board? Earlier this morning, it was primarily policy and legislature. Are there any questions from any committee member?
Mr. Chairman, I have one. Because I heard the argument this morning. Children that ride school buses,
Yes, sir.
what was the outcome on that?
So the model policy that was presented to you would leave that decision up to the local school board. There was a lot of discussion about whether or not the bus ride should or should not be included. And looking at the proviso and the development of that policy, that would be a local decision left to local school boards. The more rural school districts really advocated for not including that, and some of the urban school districts said we would like to just cut it off altogether. So we left that open to local school districts.
Okay, thank you.
I have a comment, if I could, sir. So, yes, I want to thank you and the staff for your work on this and working with superintendents and teachers and others. You know, I've been hearing from a lot of parents that, of course, you know, they would like teachers included also, but that's another issue for another day. I too read Jonathan Haidt's book. In fact, I thought it was so important. I bought 20 copies, and I've given most of them away to anyone who would read it. And so anyone else here, I encourage you to get that. In fact, I gave away a copy this morning, so that, you know, I was going to hold that up and say, here, this is what it looks like. But it's very important. It's not just about the discipline in the schools. It's, you know, the discipline's important, but it's also, we're ruining our kids. The mental health issues with children, with young adults, with our school kids, it got so much worse after 2010 when we started seeing these smartphones coming out. You know, when we had the dumb phones, the little flip phones that, you know, it'd take you a half hour to try to text out 2 sentences. Those things were, they weren't causing nearly as many problems. But these smartphones that are on the internet and, somebody mentioned it earlier that, we spent a lot of time on the library book regulation. Well, you can get a whole lot more porn on these phones than you're going to get in those library books. And so that's another area to be concerned and exposing young people to pornography is another way that we ruin their mental health. And that's one of those inadvertent things. So thank you very much for that. And I just had one other comment, and that was, I'm also a youth minister in my home church. And I polled the teens in my youth group and asked them what they would think about something like this. And every one of them hated it, which I don't blame them. I understand. They feel like, oh my gosh, you're taking something away from us. But we had, there are 2 kids in my youth group that their parents don't allow them to have cell phones. And they're like, I don't see what the big deal is. And then I had 2 other kids in my youth group who go to private Christian schools that don't allow the phones to even come on school property. And they both said that they hated it at first, but after a while they realized how much better their school day was without them because their anxiety level was lower. There were fewer people texting throughout the day and arranging for fights and things like that, and people taking videos of inappropriate behavior. And so the inappropriate behavior almost went away. So there's not really a way to display that on your feed. So again, I want to thank you for your work on this, and I hope that we can get to getting this passed next month. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment.
Oh, yes, please.
One of the things that I took away from the gentleman while ago that was from the phone-free schools movement, parents can help the districts implement this. I think that is one of the most important things, if they could use this time period that we're allowing, if the districts would get with their parents and include the students in this, so that by the time it is put into full implementation, that they'll have their feedback and they can help them with that piece about the discipline issues and not feel like it just came from an administrator or the school board with that.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just wanted to add, that was actually a theme, Joyce, that came out in the conversation we had at Florence One, just concerns that parents may have about access to their child, say in the event of an emergency or something like that. And what is so interesting is that I think we do have an opportunity to provide education not only to our students on this issue, but to our parents and to the larger public. And that is something that, again, was surfaced in that conversation, that the districts are very hungry for us as the department to help create communications tools and resources, drawing from some of the great things that have already been modeled and rolled out in districts here in South Carolina and in other states. And that's something that we certainly want to do to give our administrators resources to have those conversations in an informed way with parents. One of the things that really struck me in talking with some of our law enforcement community is that it's actually quite counterintuitive, but it is actually less safe in many instances to have students on their phones during an emergency. We need our students paying full time and attention to the adults who are seeking to get them to safety. Those cell phones also can create misinformation that then creates more fear and panic amongst parents and members of the community. And I think parents are certainly open to this conversation, and we stand in parental locus in schools, and so we never want to do anything that would make parents feel like they don't have access to their children. But at the same time, we have to be prudent in how we provide that. I go back to the Stone Ages when I was in school, and calling the front office, it worked. So.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other comments? Is there then a motion to approve first reading of the policy?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the first reading of this policy.
Thank you very much. That, and point of clarification, we are now voting for the first reading. The other required a change of it moving from the consent agenda by a 2/3 vote to now our talking and discussing specifically about the first reading. And so thank you, Ms. Kriminger. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Hanley. Any deliberation? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And I do want to say to Patrick Kelly, I don't know if he's here or gone. I don't know. He's here. I think it was like with the other policy. The one that we're doing, with the best laid plans of mice and men, and Robert Burns said some things about that, but the reality is that in giving us this, what in the United Methodist term they call discernment, is this opportunity for us to look and glean and glaze things that might not be as intuitive as we assume them to be, and for us to try to do exactly what you said, and that would be meet with parents, because I do think without equivocation, there needs to be a serious rein in of cell phone use and proliferation, because its negative consequences, especially from adolescents, can be quite harmful, deleterious, and downright malevolent. So I just think we have to know that. All right, thank you very much. Earlier, I objected to my own board governance being the consent agenda. So we're going to take that up now, and I would ask Philip Cease to come forward and present.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
And it's nothing with school buses.
That's right. Nothing with school buses, nothing with cell phones. This just deals with the dates that the state board holds their monthly full board meetings. Earlier this morning, the Policy and Legislative Committee moved on a board rule change to move it from the second Tuesday of each month to the first Thursday. Reason being the Legislative Council, which publishes the State Register, which contains all the actions taken on regulations, deadline for publication is the second Friday of each month. So the way the board meetings currently fall on the second Tuesday, if a month starts on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, we miss the publication deadline for that month, and we have to wait an additional month. This is not changing what's required under public comment period under the APA, just moving our board meeting 1 week earlier to meet that deadline by the Legislative Council.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Cease? All right, would someone be willing to make a motion to approve what I sort of thought we had in plan this morning, but not because it interfered? Is anyone willing to make a motion?
The motion being that the State Board of Education will meet the first Tuesday of each month.
Yes.
I didn't hear that. First Tuesday.
First Tuesday.
Chairman, I just asked if Tracy knows what's going on.
Well, Lord, that's why I look at her all the time. Our understanding was the first Thursday, unfortunately, conflicted with SCASA. Both the South Carolina Department of Education and superintendents need that chance to be there on those occasions. That we just missed. So what we are looking at. We need a motion to approve. Okay. Okay, sorry. Point of order. Should have gone to law school. No, I shouldn't. We need a motion to approve, and then we can make changes. Mr. Roberts is real specific. So is there a motion to approve the realization that what we said to change?
I make a motion that we approve a change to our monthly State Board of Education meeting.
Bingo. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Are there any discussions?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to amend that proposal as there is a conflict for our superintendents on the first Thursday. I would like to amend the proposal to make it the first Tuesday of each month.
I'll second that.
May we? All right, so we have a motion and a second, first Tuesday. Help me, Mr. Cease. That keeps us fair with the register.
Correct.
That helps us, not hurts us with the posting of things so that we're not actually a month behind.
Correct.
So the first Tuesday of the month has been the motion and the second by Vice Chair Allison. Are there any questions as it relates to that? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by, wait a minute for John. All right, right at this point, thank you, Robert's Rules. All right, we're voting only on the amendment. Only on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now, we need the motion. It's on the floor for approval. See, I can listen, I can hear, and I can say things. That's good. Now, it's any discussion. Hearing none, let's do this thing one more again. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there information items? There are. If we could have Kendra Hunt, please, from the State Board of Education fiscal year Q4 financial statement.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you all. I just have a brief budget update for you. You should have some handouts in front of you. The first of which that we're going to look at is your operating statement and expenditures for the 2024 fiscal year that ended June 30th. You'll see a column over there that says budgeted. That is your original allocation and budget for the fiscal year. And next to that are your actual expenditures as they occurred throughout the year. You've got your top section for your operations budget, and below that is your educator cases budget. Just one item to kind of note, that 20% remaining budget for your classified positions and your employer contributions line items directly relates to a position that was vacant for the first 2 months of the fiscal year in 2024. And that page afterwards is just a visualization of those expenditures from the 24 budget year. The next item I want to look at is your new 2025 budget and expenditures. You'll see that it is largely unchanged based upon review of your 2024 expenditures and budget. We did not see any reason to make any adjustments at this point in time. In fact, the only adjustment that we made was to increase your classified positions line item 2.25% in order to account for the base pay increase that the General Assembly approved for the year. So with that, I will just say I see no concerns with your budget from last year or your budget into this year. We do review everything on a monthly basis at this point, so should you ever have any questions or want some information in between some of these quarterly reviews, please feel free to reach out to me. We'd be happy to get it to you.
And I want to say thank you very much for this. I think as board meetings typically go, there is a financial portion to it, and it's very nice and very well done. And I want to say thank you.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
I do have a question about this.
Sure.
Though. So with the increase in the classified positions, wouldn't that naturally lead to an increase in employer contributions as well?
It typically would, but we found it to be, we're just going to monitor that in the meantime.
Okay.
It's something we'll, like I said, we review it every month. So if we start to see that need for the increase there as well, we will absolutely make that adjustment.
Thank you for the flow chart, for the chart.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the chart.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. If Dr. Ferguson would please come up, please, for the Hope Network update.
Yes, sir. So I'm going to be quick because I know y'all have worked a lot today, but wanted to update everyone. School has started back for both Allendale and Williamsburg. Williamsburg started on July 26th, Allendale on August the 1st. We, like many school districts, have been working through e-learning days last week. Both districts were out a number of days. One point of note is that both Allendale and Williamsburg went and canceled school last week. They did not attempt to do virtual learning during a hurricane because we know that's probably not the best use of instructional time. So we will make those days up on the calendar days for makeup days. We're also working through many vacancies. We are 2 teachers short in math in Allendale and a few teachers short in Williamsburg, too. Like many districts, we're working to plug those holes, but the students are all in classes receiving virtual education at this point until we can have a certified teacher in those classrooms. So that is the update on both Allendale and Williamsburg. Yes, ma'am.
Teachers in the classroom, are a lot of those foreign teachers?
Depends on the district, but yes, ma'am, both Allendale and Williamsburg have teachers who are internationally certified. They also have a number of teachers through the other alt-route certification programs, Teach for America, Teachers of Tomorrow, PACE, and also Carolina CAP.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Ferguson? All right, thank you very much, and again, thank you very much. Please, if you would, turn in your mileage forms to Tracy, and do I have a motion that we adjourn?
So move.
Ooh, that was good. That was motion, that was like Pentecost, everybody at one time. Thank you. With that, we'll take that. Thank you.